Hey everyone, welcome to Darshan Talks. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. It's my mission to help patients trust the products they depend on. So, as you know by now, I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist. I advise companies with FDA regulated products at the Kulkarni Law Firm. So, if you have a think about drugs, a wonder about medical devices, consider cannabis, or obsess over pharmacy, this is the podcast for you. As you know, I have these discussions because they're a lot of fun, and I find myself learning something very new, something always breaking, like breaking news, if you will, from people like our guest today. So if you like what you hear, please leave a comment, please subscribe. It helps and lets me know that someone's actually listening. That's always good. You can also reach me on Darshan Talks on Twitter, or just go to our website at darshantalks.com. Our podcast today, our guest is super popular. Our guest is the one that people, every time I say that I'm bringing her on, people love that. So if you are in clinical trials, if you are in in something else, so like let's say marketing, and you're wondering what are people in clinical trials doing, this is the conversation for you. Our guest today is the vice president, head of global clinical operations at Takeda. So minor role in a minor company. That probably never even heard of her. Our guest for today, ladies and gentlemen, a beauty queen by definition, not like a theoretical beauty queen. This is a true blue beauty queen. Our guest for today, Karen Correa. Karen, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How is the gardener in the back doing?
I know he's really loud. I'm hoping he finishes. He's doing well. I mean, this is the joy of working from home. I think we all are just working through the dogs and the children and the lawn guy and construction next door. I think it's just the world that we live in, but we can all appreciate it. So
Did you see the one where the daughter is imitating the mom? Of how
yes,
she comes home? Wasn't that great?
that was great. That would be something my daughter would have done if she imitated me, because that's all my kids think I'm so funny. Yes, that was
It's always
awesome.
just shh, shh, shh. Okay.
Uh,
Let's talk about what this life has been like. You sort of we last time you came on, we had a really fun discussion, and today I'm excited because there's so many things I want to talk to you about. What has COVID life been like for you, in terms of just how do you keep yourself busy?
And you know what's interesting? I think COVID for all of us, it went through cycles, kind of like the grief cycle. Like I went through that. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I've been home all this time.
Yeah.
I went through that. As you and I were talking, I went through that weight gain, the COVID pounds that we all
You
got.
covered 50 pounds that I got. Yes.
The
Before we
COVID
started.
pounds that we all picked up on. I think we also went through the COVID challenges that we saw with our studies and our research. Here we are, trying to get, our clinical trials up and running, trying to keep them continuous. And then we saw things, come to a halt, things stopped, things slow down. So we had to deal with that. Some of us had to deal with our children and, the school systems and all of that, trying to get that all working. I don't actually have any children in the elementary school years or anything. Like my youngest is in college, at TCNJ. He's about to graduate in the next year or so. But I talked to my children about my grandchildren. Going through all of that was a lot. And so I think that what we've learned through this time is that we're a people of resilience. I mean, we really truly are a people of resilience. You give us lemons and we make lemonade. Our trials kept going, people kept hiring, people kept going places. I mean, I started Takeda during COVID.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we learned from this. So if we can get through this, we can get through anything. And that's kind of what we need to just keep that motivation going.
And that's what I love about talking to you, because you're that can do person. You're the person who doesn't say this stopped me. You're the person that says, what else can I take onto my table? What else can I do? And one of the things that you told me you do is you serve on boards.
I do.
And tell me a little bit about that, because it's one of those things that I always hear people saying, I'm too busy. I don't really know if I can add any value. Why did you choose to serve on a board? What board do you serve on? Why do you even do it?
Right. So I serve on 3 boards that I'm very much regular on. Well, one I just finished off of. One was Susan G. Komen, South Jersey. That one was near and dear to my heart. Susan G. Komen was focused really, really hard on diversity in clinical trials and health disparities in women of color with breast cancer. And so being on that board helped me be a part of that solution. So I used to be a speaker for them in diversity in clinical trials when they did their 10-city tour. And I came on the board for the South Jersey affiliate, which is no longer now. It's kind of merged with some of the other states and so forth. And I loved it. I worked on that board. I did a lot with the fundraising, the outreach, the education. And a lot of people don't realize what Susan G. Komen does. A lot of people says, I'm so over the pink. And I do have on pink, by the way, which is so funny because it's my favorite color. But people are like, I'm so over the pink. I'm tired of the pink. But it wasn't that. That was just like, it's just like the swoosh in Nike. Everybody has something that brands them. That was their brand, think pink. Now we're more than pink. So that's the piece, but that was really great for me. So I served on that. I also had the opportunity to serve on my alumni board for East Carolina University, where I went to undergrad. And if anybody's seen my story, I love ECU with all my heart and soul. Don't know how in the world I made it through East Carolina University, not because of the educational system, but because at that time I went through a lot of hardship as a young adult. I went homeless when I was in college, and East Carolina didn't put me out to throw me out. They helped me financially, and I was able to graduate from that school. So I feel indebted to that educational system, how they, rallied behind me and allowed me to be able to finish and, let me give up. And so that's why I don't let other people give up. So I'm on the East Carolina University Alumni Board. Another board that I'm on, which is really near and dear to my heart, which is CAMCARE. CAMCARE is a federally qualified health center in Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey, we have about a very, very high ratio of 90% of African-American, Hispanic population, underserved populations, that we are making sure that they have quality healthcare. And that is critical. So that's really important to me because, my family's from Camden, my father's from Camden, and so knowing that is an organization that is serving a community that my family's from is important to me. And again, it's one thing for us to get drugs on the market and get treatments on the market, but if people don't have access to healthcare, to quality healthcare, then that's a big gap. And so to me, I feel like I'm filling different gaps of, at the end of the day, the person. STEM education, that's East Carolina. So I get to give me a piece in that part. And I do a lot of STEM speaking. Another piece is getting healthcare and equity out to patients. That's CAMCARE. And then when I was at Susan G. Komen, being kind of like an advocate. So that's like a full force of, not only do I work in the pharma industry, I actually take that home and I use it in everything that I do. And I think it's important for people to do that. Some organizations you meet once, twice a month in the evening, you're watching TV, probably not doing nothing anyways. So if you can give that back to your communities, that I say go for it, because that's important for us. Pay it forward.
Well, two questions that came out of that, one of which I had no idea about. But let's ask the second easier question, which and then come back to the first one. The second easier question. Oh, but you know what? I'm not qualified. No one wants me to serve on a board. What do you say to people who say that?
Oh gosh, this is a really good question. So I tell people something that I was always told to me. You have three things that you can give in this world. You can give your time, you can give your talent, or you can give your treasure. Those three things are valuable on a board. So let's talk about your time. Your time means you attend the meetings, you see what they need. You might be an IT background. So being on a board of a company, they're always going to have IT issues. You can give advice, you can give feedback, you might have a background in building and manufacturing and all that. Boards they have facilities. So you can be the part that helps with the facilities committee. So there's all these different types of committees when you serve on a board that you can serve and provide your time and your talent, which you've been trained to do just in your job, and you can provide that to another organization. And then you can give your treasure. So I'm on all mostly nonprofit organizations that need funding. So I help with fundraising. I try to give when I can. I try to get others to give. So those three T's, if you can't give one, you can give one of the three. Somewhere in your life, one of those three you can give. Not everybody have the treasure to give. Not everybody have the talent to give, but they have the time. So it depends on what you can have. I try to give all three if I can. And if I can't, I try to give one of the three.
I love that. I've never heard of it broken down like that. This idea of
time, talent, treasure.
That's really cool. Have you actually done much listening around this? Because is that just impromptu? You just knew that, or?
I knew that because it's a church thing.
That's
Sorry.
pretty good. I was like,
Yeah,
wait a second.
pastor preaches about it all the time. Yes, and we can.
Throw out.
That's what we have though. Everybody has one of those three, and some people have all three. It depends.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. No,
I love it. Let's go back to the harder question that I'm hesitant to raise, but you raised it, so I'm actually very, very interested. You mentioned the homeless thing. I had no idea till you mentioned it. That's a hell of a path to go from homeless to basically head of global clinical organizations at a giant pharma company.
Yeah.
I have to know. I mean, to you, but that's just a resounding success.
I mean, I don't know if I consider it. I mean, you might want to consider success. I just consider it my story. That's everyone has a story. And that's my story. It's not, I used to look at it as like, oh, I'm ashamed, but I'm not going to be ashamed of my past. I had nothing to do with how my past happened. So I'm not ashamed of it. I use my story to help someone else. My story was the stepping stone to my success. So what it taught me is that, don't give up. Like if everybody in your audience, everything went perfect, everything was great in their life, then that's great. That's the perfect in your audience. But the average person, there's people with all types of backgrounds, all types of issues. And if they need to hear from different type of people, maybe there's that person that everything was great in their family and they grew up in this great home and their parents were together and they had money and they went off to college and everything worked out. Okay, check. That's that group. But then there's those people who maybe life didn't get all, lemonade. They got a couple of lemons and they had to work with it. I went through that whole situation. Maybe some people came from a broken home. Maybe somebody came from a single family home. Maybe, whatever the case may be, maybe someone's parents, something happened. There's a lot of people right now. Let's talk about right now. COVID, businesses that went down, people's whose companies that they built from the ground and they've lost. Look at all the food lines that we saw. Look at all the food pantries that we saw. People standing in line to get food. This is a reality today. Maybe that was my reality 30 something years ago, but this is a reality today too for just regular day people who've worked really hard for where they're at and they've lost their homes or they lost everything they have. So I'm kind of glad to now tell my story because I'm like, you know what? It happened to me. We lost everything. I was homeless in college. But guess what? I didn't give up and I graduated and I, kept pushing and kept trying and kept working. So I don't think that my story is anything that you could pass this little slip on to a whole lot of other people right now that went through this during this COVID time.
To me, the parts that jump out is number one. I first want to ask, what is, based on your own experiences, what is the best way to give your time, talent, or treasure in a way that actually helps these people today who need that help? How do you do it?
I do it through my passion. You cannot. I think you have to find the things that you are passionate about, and your purpose will it will blossom. If you're not passionate, and I'm just being honest, if you're not passionate about people, then you shouldn't be doing anything where you're serving people. You shouldn't be at no pantry handing things out because people can see through the fakeness. They can see through that you really don't care. And so maybe that's where you kind of give your treasure. You just donate money to, different organizations that help out. I'm just being honest. But if you're someone if people can embrace you, they can feel comforting by you, I know people say all the time, I'm always smiling. That's just who I am. I absolutely love, I'm probably too touchy. I can't help it. I'm from the South. Love hugging people, love embracing people. So I can stand in front of people and hand things out and give stuff because first of all, I've been there. And then two, I really care. So that's the thing. So I think you have to find what you're passionate about, and then you can let that blossom into your purpose. So there's tons of organizations that are helping right now in communities. I mean, I know like my church gives out. There's a lot of bread baskets organizations that you can go to that's always looking for things. I tell people all the time, go online and look for places to volunteer. There are so many places that need our service. They need us, it's great to sit on the couch after work all day, every day, but it's also great to get up on a Saturday morning and go and help serve people, look at people in your community, find out where your elderly populations are at, look who needs that services and be a part of that.
I love it. Okay, so the other way you sort of give back, and you mentioned this in the context of CamCare, and you talk about this need for health equity. So talk to me about how you, in your role in at Takeda, are actually help addressing that health inequity in the context of clinical research.
So Takeda, like many other companies, and I'm not speaking specifically for Takeda, I'm just talking about organizations in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
What I've seen and what we're doing, a lot of organizations, a lot of pharma companies, biotech companies, everybody is stepping up to the table, which I love. I love seeing it. You have now pharma have the new Pharma Principles that they put out. You've got companies that put out articles on things that they're doing. A lot of people are out in the community. They're working with different organizations from an advocacy standpoint, to bridge the gap on health equity. We're working with a lot of different organizations like CISGRIP and MRCT and different places like that, and Bio and NCI. There's so many, or NIH. There's so many organizations they're sitting there, and people are now collaborating with them. Not that they haven't been in the past, but now we just all stepping up our game, and we recognize that. Wait a minute, I think that people have been working at it, and I say this all the time. But now we are truly embracing it to a point like it's embedded in everybody's business models. I mean, I'm always picking up the newspaper, picking up an article, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this company's doing this and this company's doing that, and that's great, because we've been talking about this health equity. Like I tell everybody, we've been how can I say it? We've been embracing it a little bit, or kind of courting it or dating it, but now we're getting married to it, and so that's what I see people are doing, and right now. Takeda's doing it too. You have a lot of organizations that help people that's the head of their health equity office, so you got roles that's what people have. So imagine that, like, this is someone's job to be able, so that means it's their priority, and they're committed to it. And that, we have a health equity person at Takeda, and we have like the office, and we got different people that work in it. I'm hiring a diversity in clinical trials lead. A lot of companies have diversity in clinical trials offices. That's amazing. When I started this industry, that was not heard of. It was an initiative. We'll put some people together. Y'all can talk about it, meet a couple times, see what you can do. But now there's actually people with that job description actually getting paid to make sure that happens. That's, to me, a step in the right direction.
So I mean, I have so many questions that jumped out of that. Let's start with one. The first question that I have that comes out of it is, do these leads, when you see these people, these individuals, one of the conversations I've had, doesn't represent all of them, but represent these conversation, was people have the role but don't have the power to actually do anything with it.
So let's talk about that. Let's just dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't want to get into politics, but it's kind of like someone in the office, in any type of office. Sometimes you have to your power comes from your influence.
Okay.
I tell people all the time, it's like being a leader. You're not powerful just because someone looks up to you because of your title. They look up to you because they see you deliver something, you do something. So that power kind of comes from what your actions are. So I know that a lot of people have been in these roles, and they've been working, and they've been clawing at getting something done and changing it. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of things happen in life. It doesn't happen overnight. So the first step was, we have people in the position.
Yeah.
Now we got other companies that's doing the same thing. And now these companies are now bridging the gaps with certain organizations like Transcelerate and Pharma. So we start coming together. That is where the power is going to come from. Power comes in numbers. It comes from continuing, to just keep happening. It's what I think some people might have wanted is like, okay, you put the person in the role, and now they put all these things out there and nothing happens. So they get discouraged. If that be the case, do you know how many things in life we've been working at and clawing at? And, if that was the case, we wouldn't still be having Black Lives Matters movements and stuff like that. We cannot get discouraged. We just can't. We cannot get discouraged. Change has happened. It's just going to take even more time in everything else that we do. And we have to embrace that and say, okay, we have to recognize that this battle is going to be a little bit rough uphill. But if we all stick together and continue on this fight, it will happen. But if we say, oh my gosh, nothing's changed, and just give up, we probably given up before we saw our award or saw our victory. That's just how I look at it. I can't look at the glass as being half empty, but half full. I
Yeah.
just got halfway more to go. So it's just how you look at the glass.
So let's talk about this role you're going to hire. This person who's going to be your diversity and clinical trials lead.
I know, I can't wait. We're definitely hiring someone. Can't wait till someone comes on board. When they do, we will have of course, an announcement. Very excited to have somebody come on board and have that role. At one time in my life, I was like, that'd be the perfect role for me. But then I think I would have gotten it wouldn't have been big enough for me. I would have wanted bigger, but I'm excited to bring someone on. I think that's just the first big step that, give someone, and they can actually focus on it, instead of it being a piece of this person and a piece of that person after they do their day job. Because that's kind of how it was with me at prior organizations. I was the head of the diversity and clinical trials initiative. So it was like a full-time job. And then I had to do this at night.
Right.
That's not cool.
So tell me about when this person comes on. This is the first time you're hiring a person in this role, correct? This role does not exist. Okay. So once this person comes on, how are you going to make sure that he or she has the ability to do their job?
It's kind of like any other new position. I'm going to give them time to embrace where they're at, work through the organization, work through what the role really needs to look like. It's kind of like it's planning, because if you fail to plan, what happens? You plan to fail. So it's going to be in the planning stages. What does need to look like? We all got our ideas on how it should look, but let the person come in, give them a little bit of autonomy and say, okay, this one will do this one. And then we'll sit together, we'll work together as an organization. There's a lot going on in our organization internally. This is only a piece of what we're doing in diversity. We're doing a lot within diversity and clinical trials. So this is just a piece of the nugget. So that's just like, so bringing that person in, getting the planning up and running, and having it move forward to the next stages, just like other organizations have done or are still doing. A lot of organizations are probably still working this all out. I don't think any one of us has the perfect answer or the right answer. Yeah. And I say that with honesty and respect, because if it was perfect, we wouldn't still be talking about it.
Right.
I mean, I think we all have great ideas, and I think we've all done great things. I think I've looked at some other organizations, they've done great things. Takeda's done great things. What we're all doing is we're still learning from that. We're still improving. Because diversity in clinical trials keeps changing too. Let's just point that out. Like that, my master's and my PhD dissertation was on this topic. So this is not a new topic for me. It is not something I've been, brushing on here and there. I've been working on this topic for over 20 years. It has evolved. It is definitely evolved, and it's changed. Some of the same players I still talk to that I talked to 20 something years ago. Owen Garrett, him and I, we was just on panels together for a COVID vaccine in a community, teaching different organizations about getting, people vaccinated, talking to different people. Dr. Lenore Coleman, from Healing Our Village. Me and her worked on stuff 20 something years ago. Dr. Gavin, he's now retired. I worked with him. There's so many people from like back in the day that has been working on this topic with me. And, we still talk about it. We still believe in it, and we know that it will move. But, we just can't give up. We really can't.
So what I hear you saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is you're going to take the method of letting the person grow, letting the person develop, and then once you know what he or she can do, helping guide the process from there, so that iteratively this role can get more heft, more power, and do the things it was intended to do,
right,
as creating it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a playbook. We'll have it all put in place. We'll have a playbook, and we'll move forward on how that's going to be done. Now, again, bringing together all the things that we're already doing. So it's not that we're not already doing stuff, but now there's just going to be having a person, not one person, but having a role that will be able to kind of tie everything together, kind of like making a quilt. So there's pieces, health equity, group is doing this, and patient advocacy is doing this, and patient engagement is doing this, and patient recruitment and retention is doing this, and feasibility and study startup is doing this. So all these different people are doing things. So now we got somebody that can pull all that together and then develop a playbook on how it will look as an organization, from this organization. Again, not saying that it's like any other organization. Nothing against anyone. I don't think it's end all be all. I think that as an industry, as we continue to keep learning and growing and from each other, that is what's going to really make this topic go to the next level. Because again, diversity continues to change and it continues to have different challenges. You know, right now, I think we're on a new challenge. Like, who knew we was going to have COVID? You know, it accelerated the thing that we've been working on. How long we've been working on having decentralized clinical trials? Well, guess what? COVID was like, snatch that little Band-Aid off. Like, okay, if you don't want to do it, guess what? Your trial won't continue. So COVID just snatched that little Band-Aid off of organizations. Like, I'm not doing this. What do you mean an e-consent? We're not doing that. We're not doing this. But, well, if you don't do it, you won't move forward. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So that raises the next question, right? You talked about the process of something coming into the mainstream, that addressing that issue of power, if you will, a few seconds ago. And you talked about first what you land up doing is you try to like grab and claw for that power. Then eventually people expect you to do something because that you've been clawing for that anyways. And then eventually groups come together and say that this is an issue we want to address. One of those situations right now is the Pharma Principles in Diversity in Clinical Trials. Talk to us a little bit more about what you're doing, what your goals are. And again, there'll be a formal everything that comes out. So this is more of a pre-review, pre-construction, not an official position from Takeda or anything, but just conceptually, what are people trying to achieve?
Wow. So I would say read the Pharma Principles. I don't want to speak like I'm speaking for the Pharma Principles or speaking for Takeda. I don't want it to sound that way. I really don't. What I want people to do is to know that something is being done. I want them to know that the Pharma Principles are definitely available and you can pull them up. And more importantly, I want people to know that the industry is coming together as one, looking for a common end or common goal of improving diversity in clinical trials. I think that's the real piece, that we're coming together as one. And I think that, again, I truly believe that we're stronger together than we are separated. And that thing is I think that's the piece that's going to really, that resonates to me. And I think that's what the industry needed. And I think this is where the step has changed.
I love it. So I know you have a little bit of a hard stop, and I want to be respectful of that as well. But I also want to, I also try to keep this around 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Well, before we go down a couple of questions, do you have a question for the audience?
Oh, what would be my question? What do people really want to see if they could fix one thing and in clinical operations, because I'm in it? What is the one thing people want to see? What is the one thing that people say, gosh, I wish somebody would just deal with this one issue? I'd love to hear somebody, hear some thoughts on that, because I feel like we're always trying to fix, every organization trying to fix so many types of things. What is that one thing that everybody's like, gosh, I wish somebody would attack it? There's just, I'm curious. So see if we get some thoughts on that.
I love that. Love to get some people sort of responding and giving us their thoughts on it. Rapid fire questions. We've now narrowed it down to just two.
Okay.
So the first one is the question of the month. So what challenged you this month?
What challenged this month? Oh, how about this? I think the challenge that we all have in ClinOps, and I don't want to say it's a challenge, but it's something we all trying to recognize, is patient recruitment and access. And I don't want to really say it's like this challenge, but it is the elephant in the room at every company, on every study, from one way or another way. I think that whatever we can do to continue to increase patient recruitment or patient access is just a challenge. It constantly changes. I talk about, like with COVID, it just constantly changes. It really does. Before COVID, it was one reason, now it's another reason. Now it could be insurance. There's so many things that impacts us in trying to reach patients. We know there's patients out there with whatever indications all of us are studying. But how do we get those patients to know that there's a trial for them? How do we get that out in the world? And I use the COVID vaccine. I use that. And the reason why I use that, because I think about how we have so much information on COVID. You cannot turn that TV on. You can't watch a TV show. I mean, I was just watching one of my favorite shows that I look at all the time. Queen Sugar. And at the end, they were talking about how you need to get vaccinated. I'm like, look at this. At the end of my favorite show, they're talking about getting vaccinated. So it's constant reminder at every platform. Somewhere in that process, it would be nice if we had something that gave us that type of awareness, because for the community, so that every community can know. It's not about everyone doing a clinical trial. It's just that everyone knows that it's available for whatever you have, diabetes, cancer, whatever you're dealing with, a rare disease. The more people are armed with information, the better they can make informed decisions. But if they don't even have the information, that's it. We always say that knowledge is power. It's really not the knowledge that's power. It's the access of knowledge. And then once you get the knowledge, it's the application of knowledge. Because you can know a whole lot of stuff, but if you don't do nothing with it, it has no power. And there's a whole lot of knowledge out there, but if you don't know about it, if it's not accessible to you, then it's not powerful. So to me, knowledge and power is like in the middle. We got to make sure people know that get the knowledge, and then we got to show them how to apply it.
Yeah.
So.
Very, very cool. Okay. So what I do need to do is I need to do a quick summary, and we've sort of had.
Okay.
It's funny. Like every time I talk to you, like I just keep listening. I'm like, wait a second. I'm actually supposed to be engaging and asking questions. Like, wait, what happened here? But let me do a quick summary. We talked a little bit about sort of your experiences. We talked about your experience as the board of CamCare. You talked about sort of the value of it. We did not talk about, and I cannot believe I missed out, is talking about your retirement. You're retiring your last sash as a beauty queen. That I cannot believe I missed that. That is a shame.
Okay.
No. I want to bring it up.
It was a sad moment to give it up, so that's okay. But I do want to say though, let's not take away from our pageant girls. I really don't want to take away from the fact that women of pageantry do a lot of volunteering. So we give our time, our talent, and our treasure. So I just want to say that.
I love it.
Your people.
We talked about diversity, inclusion, health equity. We talked a little bit about the limitations of that. Things like vaccine access. We talked a little bit about the lack of technology savviness, which may actually end up impacting the types of people who might benefit from a lot of the conversations we're having, a lot of the healthcare options that are out there. That's actually affecting health equity. We talked about your path. We talked about you being on the board of Susan G. Komen, and how that progress, everything from being a speaker on clinical trials for them to what you referred to, and I thought that was really interesting. I've never heard that term before, which is more than pink. Is that a real thing that people say, or?
That was one of our slogans. I forgot what year it was, like 2 or 3 years ago. That was in our whole slogan with our, walk run promotions. It was the more than pink t-shirts, because we're more than pink. So that was their little slogan at that time frame.
Interesting. You talked about your experiences at East Carolina University, where you actually started off homeless, but they helped you get through it. And you said that you actually feel like you owe them a debt. And you try to help out as much as you can. And I think that they should, and they probably do, consider you a huge success story, just because of everything you've done, not counting even the part where you came from. Just everything you've done by any stretch of the definition is a huge success story. Then you actually talked a little bit about fundraising, which I thought was, and sort of how you give back. And you said the three major terms, which this is now part of my I have to make it part of my lexicon because I've never heard it and I love it. Time, talent, and treasure. I should go to church not necessarily for the lessons, but for the great lines. There's some great lines here. But I think that's awesome. That's wonderful. Just a beautiful way of giving. You talked a little bit about your journey. You talked about the Pharma Principles, and we actually dug in a little bit deeper in terms of what they are doing. You talked a little bit about patient recruitment and access and how that's become a bit of a problem. And we spoke a little bit in general about diversity and the role that you're hiring for as a diversity in clinical trials lead. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think you missed anything. I really don't. I think you hit them all. Those are like we talk about a lot, and I know that I can keep going on and on because I'm so passionate about, speaking and giving other information to people. There's a lot of people who are like shy or scared to tell their story, but they gain a lot of wisdom, or not even that I have wisdom, but I don't want to say that. I don't want to like gloat or anything, but they gain a lot of confidence from listening to someone else's story. And so if my story can help someone else, then by all means use it, because that's what I really want to I believe in. I think about and I'm going to leave with this. I was watching, if you haven't watched the Selena story on Netflix, the Selena, we all know how her story ended. Obviously a very sad story for a 23-year-old, very talented woman to be life to be taken. But she was being interviewed not too long before she was murdered. And the guy asked her, how do you want to be remembered? And amazing that someone asked her that. And then, she left, and it hit me about being a role model. That, I think that was amazing. And it's funny. That's exactly how I want to be seen. I don't want to, what I did at my companies, what I did for work, what I did for my children as a mother or a wife, all of those are great. Those are things I really want to be remembered. But what I really want to be remembered is how I impacted someone else's life, because life is so precious. So if I impacted you to not give up on your dream, not give up on your goals, not give up on what you want to do for your community, not give up on what you want to do for others, not give up on what you want to do for yourself, then that's huge. That's how we're going to truly change anything that we're doing. And if we really truly want to bridge the gap on health equity, health access, clinical trials, diversity, whatever that all comes from each one of us doing our part.
The problem with talking to you is I don't know how to, like, you summarize it so well that me trying to add anything to it is a complete waste of time. But I still have like things to go to that I have to mention, because as a lawyer, I feel bad not saying that nothing in this podcast should be construed as legal or clinical advice of any kind. It's intended for educational entertainment purposes only. But the truth, and it does not represent anything that Takeda is necessarily doing. This is Karen's individual opinion only as well. But that is I'm such a terrible lead out after
it's all right. I mean, when you, like I said, your passion will lead you to your purpose. I truly believe that, and you're right. I'm not speaking on behalf of an organization that I work for. I work in an industry that I believe in. That's why I've been doing it for 30 years. Yeah. It's just that simple. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I believe in this industry. I believe that all of us, no matter what company you work for, we all really care about the compound, the drug, the asset, the device, whatever we're working on to improve someone's lives. We all want to make a difference. Yeah. And I think that we do that together. Like, I think the positivity at the end of the day, it's all about life. It's about human life. And that's what matters.
I love it. Karen, you talk about bringing people together. So if people want to reach you, how do they reach you?
Ooh, there's lots of ways. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Probably you're talking about LinkedIn. So I'm definitely on LinkedIn. And I try to respond to everybody. If I don't respond, please, I tell people all the time, charge it to my mind and not my heart. And I will get to you as soon as I can, because I do like to, reach out to people. I try to connect people with other people. Like people, I say, hey, do you know someone that, I try to connect people. Listen, we should be paying it forward. That's what we really should be doing. We should be paying it forward. So if I don't reach back to you as soon as possible, just keep tagging me. I promise I'll try my best.
But what are you on Twitter?
Oh my gosh, it's Karen Correa, if I'm not mistaken. Should be. Okay. Yeah.
Fair enough. Love it. If you like this podcast, please leave a comment, please subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at DarshanTalks, or go to our website at DarshanTalks.com. Karen, as always, just brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.